And hello, we have people, we have a stream, we have a pseudo, say hello pseudo,
Hello, Pseudo.
and we have a Gazimoff.
Buongiorno.
It's Gazimoff of the no chili for the rest of tonight. So we're not allowed to use extraneous food references to taunt him, as sadly he's not been able to have food yet this evening. But instead of talking about food, we have a few other things on the menu. What do we have? Why, we're going to be talking, as well as Gazimoff's crazy news roundup, we're talking about character customization and what it is that makes up a character. You've got visuals, you've got stats, you've got classes, you've probably got hats, and there's other things as well. However, let's start as always with the news. It's news time.
Okay.
Sorry. It's the cat thing.
Okay. So, first of all, I've been itching to say this pun all evening. Blizzard clearly has the hots for Dota. What do I mean by that? They've announced not Heart of the Swarm, but Heroes of the Storm. So that's not going to get confusing, obviously. Heroes of the Storm is the replacement for what they were calling Blizzard All-Stars or Blizzard Dota way back when. It's basically going to be Blizzard's version of Defense of the Ancients. So you've already got League of Legends and Dota 2 already kind of rampaging through the MOBA space. And now Blizzard's going to try and compete in there as well. They've been planning this for a while, but it seems that they're finally making a bit of a push towards actually producing something and letting people start getting tucked into it. The key thing is that Blizzard's going to need to start producing something that's different to what's already available. Otherwise, established players just have no reason to switch. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually announce something at BlizzCon, which is coming up in a few short weeks.
Isn't it just?
Yes.
Martin, you're going to have to go forth and get us that information.
I shall
task thee
sally
with
forth.
this quest.
But they've got to have something up their sleeves. I mean, it's not like Blizzard to operate without a clear plan. Whatever people think of what they do and don't do, everything they've done, they're pretty much successful at least commercially, if nothing else. So they must have a plan, but I've not heard too many clarion cries as to what it might be.
I think the big issue that they're going to be facing is they need to start showing us what they've done. They've probably gone through several iterations of trying to get something which is familiar to existing Dota players, but has something unique and special for them to actually get into. That's actually quite difficult, because if you break away too far from the formula, then that compelling gameplay, the kind of three-lane setup, starts to break down. So whatever they've got up their sleeve, they're trying to say that they're doing something different, but it needs to still have enough of a lure to pull away players from those existing franchises. And that's probably what's caused this delay here. It's not just the fancy characters that they're going to have. There's got to be more to it.
I do wonder, though, to what strength IP. And this is almost on topic for something coming up later, but of course we are familiar with the Blizzard characters and their universe in a way that's pretty much not true for anything else. So is that enough of a hook and a lure?
I would tend to disagree. I don't think it is. I think Hearthstone, which was the other game came out recently that acted as a nice lure, was also reasonably unique in the marketplace. Sure, there were other trading card games that had come out, but there weren't anything that had been released to such a high level of polish, particularly with such an overlap with the existing Blizzard player base. So I think that with Dota and with League of Legends in particular, because it's been so established and it's managed to get such a wide-ranging player base, and there's a lot of people who play both, I don't think that they would switch from their investment in their current set of champions and all the money that they've sunk into it purely to play in the kind of Blizzard space. I think there would have to be more to it than that.
Well, they're doing something that pulls in the audience of people who know World of Warcraft. I mean, how many people played World of Warcraft because they played Warcraft 3? How many people play Hearthstone because they're familiar with World of Warcraft, and vice versa? if you're not coming out with the new thing, the new style, the new gameplay mechanic, the new whatever, you have to be willing to, like you said, not reinvent the wheel with the lanes and things like that, but at the same time, you have to bring something different. And if all they're bringing different is the fact that you're playing Thrall, you know, does that really make that much of an impact? And the reality is, Blizzard has enough of a fan base where the object or the concept of being able to play Thrall is exciting to some people. And they may donate themselves to it, and they may play it for, like, I don't know, a week, and that rush of, ooh, it's something new, it's something exciting, but does it have staying power? I'll be really curious to see what they announce, because BlizzCon's coming up, so you're not going to hear bells and whistles until, I think, BlizzCon, and then you're going to have this big showcase. At least if they're smart, they'll do it that way.
We wait to find out whether it will be enthralling or not. But Gazimoff, carry on.
Captain Cheese strikes again. So
I don't know why I subject myself to these things. I know in every show it's going to get worse, especially with the MMO buffet and the way he teases you. And I, from the bottom of my heart, Gazi, I am very sorry. I really am.
So, moving on from Blizzard to Elder Scrolls. So Elder Scrolls Online have released something which is a little bit more interesting and a little bit more exciting this week. They went through their character creation video, so showing how all of the different character customization options for creation are going to play with each other, and that's from all the different racial selections through to the different body types and genders and so on and so forth. It's quite interesting to see the kind of look that they're going for, which does look like an evolved version of Skyrim. Slightly better graphics, slightly higher polygon count, but still keeping that very much an Elder Scrolls feel. It was interesting to see how that contrasts as well to other MMOs, both currently on the market and upcoming MMOs as well. And I think that the two that we see releasing in Q1, Q2 next year, so Wildstar and Elder Scrolls Online, are going to have very different feels to them. But yeah, if you haven't seen it already, well worth a look, if only to see, okay, I can kind of get where their art style is aiming for, and just how much we'll be able to have that unique look to our characters.
There is a bit of controversy with it, which is, it's worth noting. It's nice to be able to see the character customization. It's nice to see you have quite a bit of control over things, etc. However, for those who haven't had a chance to see it yet, Dave, aka All-Star MMO, has done a brilliant piece on discrimination on our website. It is right there when you log in, or when you get to the front of the site, MMO Buff. It is worth a serious read. And unfortunately, with the way that they've set up the character customization, there is a serious lack of understanding between the male and the female physique in some cases. And it's actually started a little bit of an uproar on Twitter. I know that Starspun was not happy about it. And in the last stream I did when we were playing World of Warcraft from a challenge, the leveling challenge, we got into a huge debate about the character customization of body types in games from a discrimination, sexism, racism point of view. And it's well worth going back on my Twitch stream and looking at it if you want. But keep in mind that even though it's been released, there is already controversy. Welcome to bringing new things out for games. You're always going to find someone who's got something wrong with it. But in my opinion, I think they kind of screwed up, at least a little bit.
Well, we will have to see, because of course, who knows what the final release and options and everything is actually going to look like there. So your point may well be very valid, but I'd be very keen to see the finished, polished product and see, hang on, have they paid attention as they've gone through that journey?
Exactly. And Stoutpint made a point in reference to you, Gazi, about Hearthstone. Is evidence enough Blizzard seems to be adept at establishing or taking the established genres, making them accessible to the casual audience, which has its own connotations. But yes, that is very true. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, I think the big issue with taking things to a casual audience is that unless they're policed carefully, they can become quite toxic quite quickly. And both League of Legends and Dota 2, Valve's Dota 2, suffer to an extent with a toxic community. I know both work very, very hard against that, but there's, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't happen in Blizzard's format as well. Apart from that, moving on to Wildstar news, Now, I would be telling you about all of the glorious WildStar news at this point in time. However, we've actually started a new show. So you can get Cosmotronic, which is our new WildStar show, live every Friday, around about 8 p.m. So the same kind of time as this one, but just Fridays. And we go through all of the WildStar news and the major topics of the week and stuff like that. But you can also get it on YouTube as well, on the MMOBuff YouTube channel. So if you do a search for that on YouTube, user MMOBuff, I think it is, you can get all of the information there, and you can recap on the show.
And we'll put links in the show notes as usual.
We will put links in the show notes as usual. But yeah, I think from our first show, it went fairly well. Seems to be fairly popular.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Nice to see, especially all that YouTube activity. So thank you, people. Much appreciated.
Yes.
Yes.
And as with anything, feedback is the lifeblood of shows like this. So if you've got any thoughts, suggestions, recommendations, then do let us know, and we can hopefully act on them. Moving on back to Blizzard now, and Cataclysm. World of Warcraft Cataclysm is now in the Warcraft battle chest. So if you've been looking at getting into Blizzard, or World of Warcraft rather,
I am so mad right now. I can't even begin to tell you. Because of the fact that we just swapped to the European servers, and I had to do it before. I'm livid. I'm absolutely livid.
The reason why Pseudo's a bit angry is because up until this point, you've only managed to get 2, I think it is, of the 4 expansions. You've managed to get World of Warcraft, the original,
The Burning Crusade.
Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King in the battle chest, and that was it. And now you get Cataclysm thrown in as well. So you still have to buy Mists of Pandaria separately if you want that, but at least you get 3 of the 4 now in the box. But for those people who bought it 2 weeks ago, unfortunately they've had to pay full price for 2 expansions. But
no, actually, you get a discount when you do an upgrade.
Okay.
But at least you do on the European side. I'm not. Well, I think you do on the U.S. side as well, because we've had people going from 2 different sides. But yeah, I still am really not happy with the fact that you have to pay for it twice. But that's okay.
Yeah, but yeah. So if you are thinking of getting into World of Warcraft for the first time, or you're looking at getting someone like a friend into World of Warcraft, then the battle chest deal is still a pretty good primer. That will take them all the way up to level 85, I believe, to get them started, and then they can pick up Mr. Pandaria as a separate thing.
It'll still take
unless they want to play a monk to start.
Unless they want to play a monk to start off with, but who would want to do a crazy thing like that?
Definitely not me.
All the time.
What else do we have, Mr. Gazimoff?
Okay, so apart from that, going over to Guild Wars 2, ArenaNet are looking for collaborators. Now, it's not some kind of nefarious plot they're looking to hatch, particularly with Halloween and November the 5th coming up. But what they're actually looking at is trying to get some people to assist them with development. And they want people to start voicing their opinions about the kind of developments that they should focus on. In particular, whether they should start looking at focusing on living world, living story, or if they should start concentrating more on PvP. They're asking people to put their nominations in a forum post, looking at the kind of top 3 categories that they should be focusing on, and based on that, they'll be looking to kind of refocus some of their efforts in the months ahead. This is quite interesting because although they capture a lot of metrics, and we've discussed that with them about the various different popular pieces of content that people tend to play, this is much more kind of future looking as well. So it's interesting to see how this survey works, but it might set a trend for the future where you get players kind of having more of a choice in which direction to go.
Do you think they'll take it the route that Eve did and actually have a players collaboration that works sort of as the community voice, or do you think they're just going to kind of keep it separate?
I think they'll continue with this forum post for now, but I do think that player councils like the Eve Council for Stellar Management, or CSM, are in fact a good thing, as long as you kind of have a fresh face in every so often. One of the other things that the Eve community, being around for 10 years, is acutely aware of is what they call the bitter vet syndrome, which basically means when a veteran gets rosy-tinted glasses on the game that they used to play and grows disheartened with the game that they're playing now. They become kind of bitter and jaded about what it's become.
Nothing to do with being called out to an emergency at 2 a.m. involving a large bovine creature, then?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Wow.
I will say, though, it's following another trend within CSoft and communications in general, is we're seeing more and more positive moves towards proactive community communication and integration in certain ways. You've only got to go back 2, 3, 4 years where the thought of a company going, "Hello, users, what would you like?" would be strange and unusual. Some companies are still doing it far better than others. And there's issues with things like player councils, but the principle's fantastic, so hats off to them. Let's see where they take it next. Watch this space.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good move. I think we'll see more of them. I just think that it's one of those things you need to kind of manage and police it carefully in order to make sure it's an effective tool rather than something that's just a PR exercise. And talking about PR exercises, so there's been a bit of a... If you have been on the internet this week, you will have probably seen news about this one. But if not, allow me to recap.
Oh, how there was to do something.
So, this is a classic example of how to completely mess up your game launch. There is a game which is currently on Steam called Day 1 Gary's Incident, which is kind of struggling on the review front. It's a first-person shooter that went through Greenlight on Steam and then went on sale. And for $15 American, you can play this game built in the Unreal Engine. And it's not very good. It's actually quite shockingly bad by all accounts. So bad that famed critic John Bain, aka Total Biscuit, decided to put together quite a comprehensive review of the game under his kind of WTF series. Now, if you're not familiar with his work, he does WTF reviews, which are kind of like a first look and a bit of critical analysis, mainly on the kind of indie game scene, so it does tend to highlight hidden gems that might normally pass people by, but also really flags up big clangers that people should avoid. Now, this was actually taken down by the developer. The developer put what's called a DMCA flag. DMCA stands for Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It's quite of an interesting thing, and the reason it's a bit problematic is because in the States, they have this thing called freedom of speech. We don't have this in the UK, funnily enough, but it's a part of their constitution in the States. And part of that is that anyone should be allowed to criticize something or use something in terms of educational material or review or critique or analysis or stuff like that. And that's enshrined within their legal framework. So raising a DMCA notice that's unfounded or without any cause is actually illegal and in their kind of law. So there's going to be this horrible tussle going on now between a critic who has a right to criticize and a developer who's trying to shut down criticism, and the net result is the whole thing is just spiraled out of control with John Bain, Total Biscuit, then saying this is what has happened, this is the whole background. There is an awful lot of information which we will put into the show notes for you, but it's a classic example of how not to market your game, because even if the game is bad, things like this just make sure that everyone knows how bad your game is. Of course, the easiest way to avoid bad reviews is to not make a bad game in the first place.
Some people find that hard.
It is worth noting that the industry, or the game developer, Stefan, I believe is his name, has actually removed his claim against that video. And with some kind of really, and I hate saying this, but it's this really weak sort of response of, well, after seeing the outpouring of negativity, we're just not going to you know,
We've removed our
force him to
complaint.
take it down. We removed our complaint. But to me, that is it's such a weak response. And it is true. I mean, as specifically stated by Jaredar, the fact that this is entirely possible is bad. But there are technical realities here that have to be taken into consideration. Now, I don't want to go too far because this topic could go on for hours. And just as a special treat to people, we do have a special guest next week that will probably happily go into many conversations about copyright and other things, because we are having a guest from GOG.com coming in to talk with us on the show. But anyway, without going off into a wild tangent about copyright and
I shall save my
trademarking
rant.
and multiple laws and how the DMCA should not impact you and all the, we'll just refrain for now because we do have a show coming up all about that.
And for all of you in the channel who want to talk about such things as copyright, and yes, I shall refrain, don't worry. That will be, is it next week's show, Sido, next Monday?
It is. It is the
Next
28th
Monday.
that we have, I believe it is Trevor from GOG Gaming, or GOG.com. GOG Gaming, wow. And for those who are actually familiar with GOG, which is goodoldgames.com kind of a thing, or at least GOG.com, and then it's Good Old Games, they have a no DRM revolution going on. So it's going to be an interesting topic. It will be well debated, and it will be fun. And that is definitely something you want to spread to everybody you know who wants to get in on the debate, because all kinds of things can be said and discussed in there.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's like my bread and butter. I love stuff like that. Anyway.
And with that, does that take us to the end of the news round? Or have we got anything else
That does
to
indeed
slot in?
take us to the end of the news. But yes, all I would say is that apart from that, the only other news is I am not here next Monday because I am in Wales. So someone else will have to bring you the
Cymru?
news.
Cymru?
We shall work out what to do in that venture. However, time to move on. And
Yes.
Sudo, would you like to talk about Razer?
Yes, I would. I am still waiting, but I'm going to have my mouse this week. I'm actually really looking forward to it, of testing a Razer mouse, because as everyone who yes, he has my mouse. Give me my mouse. I want to test this thing. I'm used to 5-button mice, people. You know, giving me buttons to play with, and the fact that I'm actually back into playing MMOs on a large scale now, it'll be interesting. But yes, the folks from Razer have been kind enough to give us some things to give away. In specific, we are catering to the southpaw, the lefties, those who use the right side of their brain instead of the wrong. We're talking about you left-handed users. We have a mouse specifically for left-handers. It is the 2013 Naga. Correct?
14.
Correct. 14. Math. I don't do it, apparently. 2014 Naga for left-handers. So if you know a gamer who is left-handed and is struggling with all of those, to quote the guy, oh gosh, I forgot his name from Razer, Nick, from Razer, your Control Shift Alt Delete J Q for all your MMOs. Let them know that we've got this competition coming up. It will be announced this week. It was not announced last week because we had some other things come up, but this week we're going to put up a contest for it, and they will have a chance to have a left-handed mouse with many buttons.
And I suspect what we'll do is stick a quick addendum on this video on the YouTube just to mention it. But in addition, keep your eye on MMOBuff.TV and keep your eye on Facebook/MMOBuff. And just for once, a left-handed competition, and I don't believe I've ever seen a left-handed Naga given away before. I've seen the right-handed ones given away.
I think we are the first.
I don't believe I've seen the lefty go out as a competition prize, so that will be happening.
Yes.
But
Grix, by the way, I am Swagzilla, so apparently I do want all their stuff. I want his plushie that he is getting. And do you have your plushie? Do I get to sit here and cry a little bit because you have your plushie in a visible location? You do, don't you?
I only have this plushie.
Oh, you have a companion cube! Oh my god! Oh my god!
you
I
still
want your
there?
companion cube! No, to be fair though, I do have a companion cube scarf, so I'm slightly okay. But
Yeah.
it's a squidgy. I want the squidgy.
But let's move on
Sad
from
face.
Pseudo's desire for the squidgy and talk about the topic at
Squidge!
hand. Gazimoff, would you like to take us through the intro?
Okay, so if you have played any number of MMOs, you'll find that there are some MMOs that have a huge range of character customization options, and there are some that have very, very little. It becomes particularly prevalent if you're a bit of an MMO nomad. You drift from game to game, trying out the free month, and possibly going a few months in if it's a subscription-free game. But then tastes wane, populations move on, and you tend to move with them. But it means that sometimes you end up spending hours and hours trying to fine-tune that look or appearance, or going into trying to get a particular type of character absolutely spot on. And it doesn't even end there. Once you actually start playing the game, you end up with things like talent builds, things like weapon choices and armor choices and so on, trying to get that perfect setup for your character for the way you want to play, whether it's raiding, whether it's PvP, whether it's just dungeon running, or whether it's hanging around in the middle of the town dancing on mailboxes. Whatever your preference, you're likely to have a particular way of customizing your character to suit. But how much is too much? That's the big question. And how much, by the same token, is too little? I think we all remember Defiance with its very minimalist customization options. But I think we've also looked at Final Fantasy XIV and the huge range of choices that are available. Same with Guild Wars 2 with the various different trade schemes. So that's the kind of question I want to pose today. How much is too little? How much is too much? And how much is just about right? So there you go, today's topic.
Well, let me give you a starter for 10, because I am sure we're going to come up with possibly 3 different viewpoints here.
I don't know what you're talking about. We agree on everything.
Let me say that I am not in the slightest bit interested in a primary sense, probably just a secondary sense, in how my character looks. If the best stats exist on an old rusty corrugated dustbin, I will walk around wearing a rusty corrugated dustbin and not the shiny armor of awesome shininess. By the same token, if a particular character that I can roll has a racial ability that synergizes with a particular part of a rotation that I might use in that character in raiding, well, that could well dictate both my actual character class and archetype choice, as well as, any other choices I get to make whilst building out that character. So I would like to see as many options as possible. I would like to actually need to use spreadsheets and simulations to actually get into the required level of detail to make truly, truly optimal choices. And I would like it to be complicated, and I don't really care what it looks like in the slightest. Simple. Problem solved. That's what everyone wants, yes?
No.
No. Oh dear.
Here I'm going to pop in and just quickly go, so you mean to tell me that when you roll a character, you don't put any time or effort into picking the beard of, say, your Tauren, or what, any kind of special cloak that you might be wearing in your character design for, like, I don't know, champs or something. You put no thought into it. You just go random, write your name and go?
I can absolutely confirm when I created Mizpah in Guild Wars 2, my concern was getting the name. It was about how fast I could actually type in the name, hit random, hit go, to the point where I even practiced that routine multiple times to be able to do it in seconds the moment the server came up.
Okay, well, let me throw a concept out to you. Have either of you two played Champions Online?
Nope.
Nope. I played one of the iterations, not sure if it's that one.
Champions Online offers something that I think would be rather interesting for you to test out, Ms., if nothing else. Granted, to actually have this flexibility, you have to have paid. They do have a free-to-play subscription, etc. However, you can satisfy the people like me who like to spend hours customizing what my character looks like. However, your abilities, you have access to everything. You decide what ability you want at what level, and you can be any class, any style, anything you want to be. You can have any power from any tree in any way. However, there are obviously limitations. You can't have tier 2 of something if you didn't have tier 1. But you literally get to customize everything about your character. Downside, they don't have too much endgame content. But you can spend hours building your spreadsheets if that's where you get your joy. You can spend hours testing things out because they have simulation rooms. You can spawn NPCs that you can battle. You can do a whole bunch, and it's all spreadsheets and awesomeness and ooh.
But there has to be a place to actually use those rotations and the theory craft, else there's no point
They
in
do
doing
have
so.
some stuff. They do have some stuff. I mean, considering the fact that they've been absorbed into the Perfect World franchise, you know, there are new things coming. But the reality is, you know, how much development time do you want your team on creating that customization versus creating the content that your character would then see?
Well,
and then, I mean, in the old days, we have people who want the 10,000 sliders. And I scroll past on my screen, so I can't remember their name. They want the 10,000 sliders, but in the old days, that would have killed your internet connection. If you walked into something in like a city and there were like 40 of you and everyone who had that like minute little detail, you would have killed your internet connection because it was trying to download what the heck everybody looked like. So in the old days, you couldn't do that. In today's day and age, give us more, give us more.
Well, let's see if we can systemize this a little bit into component parts. Gazimoff.
Okay, so there are two aspects. In terms of character model design and character customization, nowadays you can have a fair amount of flexibility, but you've also got to think, okay, just how much choice is necessary, bearing in mind that some players want to tweak every single aspect of what they have with their character, and that's fine. Some people want to just be able to pick a few defaults, and that's fine as well. But realistically, trying to select the perfect length for the nose of your character or stuff like that, it's going to be very difficult for anyone apart from you to be able to see that. I'll give you an example. Eve has one of the most sophisticated character design systems I have ever seen in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you only see that yourself and in a character portrait in chat. You don't have any kind of communal areas that you walk into. For the rest of the game, you're in spaceships. So it doesn't really matter. That to one side, though, in terms of character specializations, talent builds, gear loadouts, all that kind of stuff, there's two kind of questions. Do you want to go for difficult choices, or do you want to go for something that's where you can quite easily or quite quickly work out what the optimal spec is? And that's the big thing, because people will simulate these and work out, okay, this, and this are the optimal spec. The same with gear. And you've got Ask Mr. Robot. You can say, this is my character, this is the equipment that he's got, how should I change the stats on that gear in order to give him the best chance of performing that role? That's automating the entire process. It's taking the chores out of trying to run the numbers, because you've got a system there to run it for you. You just go, done, it gives you the answer. That's not a game, that's not a puzzle. That's just a maths question, and it's tedious.
It was a lot more fun when you actually had to work it out for yourself and then decide where to share that knowledge.
I would say it's not even fun to work it out for yourself and then decide how to share that knowledge, when there is quite easily a right answer and a wrong answer. And you can run the mathematics and say, this is the right answer. It's a simple set of equations with a DPS figure at the bottom of it. That's the big issue that's kind of holding back things like World of Warcraft at the moment. The fact that whatever kind of process they put in place for kind of stat management and stat offsets and stuff like that, there will always still be a right answer. Maybe with talents you can say, okay, we're going to have hard choices because they're all passive abilities rather than stats, but still,
I wish they were all passive abilities, but you know, You've got a question coming in from the dist for you, Mizpa. It says, let me ask you this. You may not care about looks, but does it matter if devs spend a bit of dev time to let those who care, who do care, the option, giving them the option?
I absolutely think it's valid that all the tools need to be there for anyone to invest in their character and its appearance. For example, I will hit random go at the start of something, particularly, I am Mizpa, I play as Mizpa, I don't want anyone else necessarily running around being Mizpa if I can't be. And it's ever more an increasing challenge as time goes on. However, should I have the option, I could well do something like then delete, recreate, change appearances later. I guess what I'm saying is I like the idea and the concept of all this variation on appearances. They are secondary to me in terms of making my character perform well and making spec choices, and it's tertiary to me compared to actually getting my name, because my identity for me in a game is not how I look, the armor I'm wearing, it's the name and the guild. Those are the things that define me.
I have one guaranteed way to make you care about the look of your character instantly.
Oh, no, wait, really? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, I'm here.
Okay. So, do you remember?
I want to see this happen.
Do you remember the Figure Prints model series where you could have your character, give them your kind of armory setup, and they would go and make a model of your character about yay high, give or take,
Yep.
Mhm.
and they'd go
3D
and make
printing?
it. Yeah, 3D printing thing. The worst curse you can give someone is a voucher for that service, because it instantly means they have to get their character not just looking decent, but equipped with nice looking, decent armor as well. So if you that is
boy.
one surefire way to get someone to care about their character's appearance. Pretty sharpish.
I'm not totally convinced. I'd just put the DPS numbers on the plaque on the plinth at the bottom and leave it at that.
No, see, that's unfair. The thing is, sorry, going back to your point, Gazi, there is a right and a wrong way to do specs in some games, and obviously you have to develop the game in order to offer more than just one option, which is why I think the change that Blizzard did with World of Warcraft to separate out the optional talents out was actually smart, because it's separated out with what people are supposed to have versus what's situational and optional. Granted, I think they could do a lot better with it, but it was a sort of step in the right direction. Now, you have character customization to the point where you want to look at your specs, you want to look at your talents, you want to look at we'll say in your case, Ms. the DPS output, the statistical numerics that may come from a game or your character. However, should people be just given their abilities and saying, hey, this is what it is, this is a cookie cutter build for your particular archetype, go forth? Or should you give people the ability to actually build what they believe should be a particular, we'll say, mage spell? Now, I'm going to give Gazi a question here, because I've given you quite a few questions, Mizpa, so it's Gazi's question time. Let's say you're playing a game where mages are an option. Yay, you get to play a mage. However, the type of mage you play, you have two choices. You have the typical archetype fireball mage, and you have the typical archetype frost mage, and then you have a tree where you actually get to customize each individual spell. What would you pick, and why?
Okay, so my main love with playing a mage is playing a fire mage, being able to throw around big balls of fire. It's just the feel of it, and it feels powerful and impressive and stuff like that. And it was one of the things that attracted me to playing a mage in World of Warcraft, was the fact that you're throwing around big balls of fire, and you felt powerful.
Molten Core must have drove you nuts. With the fire resist everywhere.
Yeah,
it must have made you so mad.
So, Gazimoff, are you spec Frost this week?
Yeah. Yeah, remind me of those months going through Molten Core. Yes, I went through that. I spec Frost, but I grumbled the whole way through it, but there we go.
There's a surprise.
The point I'm trying to make, though, is that things like how do you want your character's spells to work? I mean, you mentioned Champions Online. The Secret World was another one that had that kind of mix where you could pick any abilities that you wanted from the huge range of, I think it was 300 odd abilities that were available, and you accumulated skill points and you then gradually unlocked them. Incidentally, if you haven't played The Secret World, I would really recommend it. It's a fantastic storyline, some of the best narration and storytelling you'll ever find in MMO, particularly a modern day one. Really, really worth it. But yeah, going back to where we were, I think that the choice of being able to customize your own spells in terms of choosing the projectile size, projectile velocity, the impact damage, any damage over time component, all those kind of variables, the cosmetic effects in terms of what does it look like, does it have any graphical shaders, does it have any lingering effects, does it, and stuff like that, does it have any luminosity and so on. I think those are kind of over the top things, and I would much rather have a designer work out what looks cool or what they think looks cool, and then I can be the judge of, hey, I don't care if this spell does no damage, it looks freaking cool when I fire it, to quote a Jeremy Gaffney.
Well, see, for me, I like having the option, like you said, of like, I just want to play a game. You already know that a fireball is supposed to take 2 seconds to cast. I could modify it with, you know, haste or maybe some celerity or something along those lines. You have those abilities. I like that on occasion, but there are times where I want to sit there and say, let me test out what it's like to have a 1.5 second fireball that does a tiny little bit less damage and mix it in with my rotation. Let me be the one to make that decision about my character, because then you can pull out, and this is where I sort of sit in the middle between you two, of I want my spreadsheets, and then there are times I just want to fire the darn fireball. So there you go.
And
I've got to be honest with you, I am lazy about the whole spreadsheet kind of thing. I will quite happily take the numbers, plug them into something that someone else has already prepared, like a tool like Ask Mr. Robot, and take the results. And as long as I understand the principles behind what it's doing, that's good enough for me. One of the other things which I think was mentioned in chat by someone called the Hive Leader was something that's become important fairly recently, and that's around the whole customization thing. So normally we've kind of had this setup where you have your character's armor, and whatever armor they're wearing, that's it. If you want to have a different outfit for your character, they have to get a different set of armor. If they want to have a particularly spangly look, then you have to go get that armor, and the most awesome looking armor was in the most perilous places. That's changing now with transmogrification in World of Warcraft, costumes in Rift, town clothes in Guild Wars 2, and weapon skins in Guild Wars 2 as well. And now
It's even mentioned in WildStar.
Yeah, with the costume setup that they're planning for WildStar as well. So I think that not only will you be able to adjust your character's physical appearance, but also their dress as well, how they look as well. And I think that's quite an interesting recent development, that players are getting tired, and Burning Crusade was a strong example of this, where they start collecting gear upgrades, but they end up looking like a clown with everything completely mismatched. There's a fantastic picture circulating around the internet recently of someone saying what they thought their character would look like, and it was this big burly orc, and what their character ended up looking like, and it was this really misjointed clown of an orc with yellow chest armor and blue shoulder pads and crimson red boots and stuff like that. It looked a complete mess, almost hysterical, and this purple helmet and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a complete joke. But that's part of the problem. So I think this whole armor customization, and the fact that they're now selling armor skins that you can then apply to your armor to get that perfect look is an interesting development.
yeah, there's two things here to jump on first of all, and whereas I'm not particularly bothered what my character looks like when I hit go, I think that how you end up looking should reflect your achievements, your time spent, your investment in your character in-game. And by that I do not mean how large your wallet is and how many cosmetic items you can buy from an in-game or out-of-game shop. So, if you've killed the biggest, baddest thing in the game, if Grand High Lord Pooba is dead by your sword, then the awesome shoulders you get from him should look like they came from him and not like they were crafted by a level 2 gnome round the corner. So if I've earned these wonderful shoulders, and there they are, they've got bells and whistles, do I actually want to see someone else walking around at level 2 with the same thing because it's a skin you can buy from the shop? No, I don't. That surely is belittling the accomplishments of others. Pseudo.
I think you've got to be very cautious here because there are different games that handle it different ways. If you look at World of Warcraft, you're not going to have a level 2 running around with those shoulders because they don't earn them. However, they could very easily say take the shoulders that they get from the next tier of content because the Blizzard developers designed probably one of the ugliest pieces of shoulders that they have ever designed for a druid ever in existence, but they thought it was a brilliant idea, and then you can transmogrify it, but you still have earned it. So what you're talking about is, it's a particular type of implementation, whereas in other games like, Champs, you can, or not, Champions Online things, you can unlock things. And unfortunately, in that particular case, you can unlock some things with money, other things you cannot. You actually have to earn them. So there are variations in there, but it depends on the type of game you're talking about. I mean, someone had mentioned Tor, and I really... People's names in the chat are so light that I look over and I periodically glance and I can't read their names, so it's very difficult for me, and I do apologize. I'm not trying to ignore you people. But someone had made mention that Tor does allow you to just turn your armor on and off as options. And, in that particular case, there's a distinction between having earned armor or earned appearance. Maybe you've unlocked the hairstyle of Twiggy Pigtails, for all I know, whatever it is. It depends on the game system, and it depends on how you get it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to the design choices of the developers.
Yeah.
So here's my own take on it. If you have a piece of loot from a boss that might be part of an armor set, then you should not be able to get that look from another from something like transmogrification, or from buying a set of skins from a cash shop or something like that. If you've put the time and effort in, done the raiding, and managed to complete an armor set for your particular class, then kudos. Your ability to walk around the towns wearing that armor set is your reward, and being able to transmogrify that look or transfer the look onto other armor sets as and when they get upgraded.
Brief interjection, Gazimoff. Hive Leader made a very good point on the same topic. If you can't grab those shoulders, are we limiting casual players?
No, I don't think so. Now, I will... Let me finish.
No! You've got a plushie I want. You're not allowed to talk. No, go ahead.
So, if... There's one kind of argument here, and this is a big argument. Should all players have the ability to participate in all forms of content? And this is another topic, really, and which we should probably look at reserving for another show. My personal opinion, no. That's both my long... Okay, the short answer is no. The long answer is no.
We seem to be on the same page for once.
I think that there are, if you want to participate in certain forms of content, you have to work hard at it and stuff like that. And if you're not prepared to chuck in the dedication and work and effort to get into that type of content, well, sorry, but no. But they should have different cosmetic forms available to them. So if you want to do heavy duty raiding, you can get a particular armor set which is suitable for you. Fantastic. If you want to get a particular armor set which you can buy from the armor store, might not be as impressive, might be just as impressive, you can do that separately, but it will be quite clearly a different armor set. It won't be the whole like burning skulls and stuff like that. It might be something like an aviator. And it won't be a different color. That's my other pet hate. So you get the impressive colors for doing the veteran mode version, and you get the basic colours for doing the kind of.
We could
I
turn
went
around.
through the raid on stabilizers.
We could turn around and make the LFR raid version all have to be neon pink, every single armor piece. They could copy the design.
And incredibly discriminating against those who believe that hot pink or pink variations actually should be the legendary items that people are forced to use. So no, bad choice.
So the Dist comes up with a very solid point here, which says he agrees with the no, and we should really save this topic for another time where we can really get into that.
There's too much to this one.
We'll have to wait till you come back from Wales.
And by the way, I like pink. So does Gazimoff.
In moderation. And this is more kind of salmon. The key point, though, is...
I don't even know the difference
Question
between
for the channel.
colors.
Is
That's what's so
Gazimoff,
funny.
is Gazimoff wearing pink or salmon? Answers, please.
Anyway, so the ability for all types of players to do content and gain rewards, yes, that's important. Yes, they should be able to do that. Those rewards should be different. Should have different rewards for different types of people. They should be rewarded, but they should be rewarded in a different way, possibly with different types of loot, possibly with completely different rewards in general. That's a much more different topic, though, and I think, yes, we should dig into that in a later show.
Such a topic.
We've talked quite a bit about customizing things in terms of what you earn, what you do, what you look like. And what you look like is only part of the equation. Let's dive into something we don't see quite so much anymore, which is something like stat distribution. I've done X, I get X spells. I have levels. I have 5 points to spend. Those of us that have played the old sort of pen and paper RPGs will still do so. We're used to this. You've gained a stat point. Yay! This should be a critical
you have to pay for it with
decision.
experience.
This is a critical decision that should affect the rest of the life of my character, yes? Yet, we see a lot about leveling, and I just leveled, and... Oh, wait, no disco lights? Was it actually a great experience, or did I kind of miss it as I travelled? So, to what degree should customization be presented as you level, as your character evolves, as you become better equipped to make customization choices? How meaningful should they be? Or should I always be able to change my mind whenever I feel like it? Pseudo, you can start with that one.
I'm popping on this one because this is actually a topic of discussion that the Undead Minions discussed many times now. It seems to be a very popular topic of discussion for us on our Saturday night stream. And what is interesting to me is if you create or give a new player all of the tools, all of the time, all of the quickness, you have basically barred someone from wanting to play your game. Unless that's what they want, and that's a small population. I mean, there's a larger population of casual gamers than there are of the 1%ers. It's 1%ers for a reason, you know? So what you have to decide really, really early on is when do you want to present these new options to people, but allowing them to have pure customization over, we'll say, the stats that they go after, allowing people to have the pure customizations of, we'll say, the spell choices that they pick. So instead of buying Fireball, they decide to buy, you know, Ice Lance or whatever spell, and they actually have to make a decision because they can't have both. You know, that kind of stuff I think is important, but I think it needs to be taught slowly through the creation of the character. You do not want to start off at the character select screen and have someone spend 5 hours designing what their character looks like, and then another 7 hours trying to decide, do I want 1 point of int, or do I want to put a point in of tenebration? You know, but you want those in anything that impacts actual gameplay mechanic-wise, not the visual style. I do firmly believe there needs to be an explanation. I personally think a lot of games don't give enough explanation of what points are, of what talents are, of what you're supposed to focus on. I find that to be very, very, very frustrating. However, I recognize that I'm a more advanced player than a lot of other people. So if a lot of other people were presented with int is going to give you a conversion ratio of X, Y, Z so that you can have this happen with this particular spell, that's going to really put people off. However, if they just said int is really good for you it's actually going to help you out, that's great. But there are actually games, even to this day, that still don't give you that at the start. They don't like teach you what you need to know to make those informed decisions.
And
So,
there, go Gazimoff.
So 2 things. First of all of this information is one of the reasons why Brady Games strategy guides made so much money back in the day in 2004, before the days of the internet proper, and why nowadays, whenever a new MMO comes out, there's a huge amount of flurry as various blogs, websites, guides, and so on spring up to say, this is how you should spec your character.
And why they now don't make so much money.
And why Brady Games don't make so much money, indeed. So there's a couple of really interesting things. I think that having choices as you level is important. We've seen that with talent choices in World of Warcraft, where you have talent points that you need to assign after a certain point. So the idea is that 1 to 10, you're still learning the game, you're learning what your different spells and abilities are, you're learning how to equip gear, but after level 10 up to level cap, you start to accumulate talent points that you can then spend on various abilities. That is fine. Guild Wars 2 has a similar setup with their trait system. You get trait points which unlock various bits and pieces, again from level 10 up to level 80. Should you have that ability locked, or should you be able to change it on a regular basis? I am in the firm believer of you should be able to change that, because there is nothing worse, nothing worse at all than spending 2 months hitting level cap as a kind of part-time player, realizing that you've put your points in the wrong stats, and having to spend another 2 months doing it again just so you can start raiding. No comments on mages who ended up doing that for Molten Core before they put talent resets in. But that's a big issue, and you should be able to kind of hit the reset button and say, no, I'm going to change it all. There you go. Should leveling feel special? And this was something that was mentioned in the chat. Yes, leveling should feel special to a point. You should get a kind of like, welcome to level 3. You now get this ability available at the trainer. You can now go to this zone, and you can now do these things. And that's about all you need. You don't need a huge fanfare. You don't need a big, like, mega parcel of fat items to say, congratulations, we're going to give you something snazzy. You may only need something like, congratulations for leveling. I think this was something that Rift did, where you'd get a care parcel every so often, like every 5 or 10 levels. It was one of something like Rift or Terror or something like that. You get a care parcel every so often as you leveled up, which was kind of cool, but not strictly speaking necessary. But it was one of those kind of things that made leveling special. But quite often, it was like you don't need to feel every level to feel special. You just need to feel informative, particularly if around zone fatigue and stuff like that, if things are dragging on a bit much.
I think, in all honesty, MMOs do things so different from like a single-player game, where each level really, they try to make every level feel special, whether they should or not. That's a serious debate. But like, let's imagine, for example, that you level up and you're in your MMO, you're playing your orc who happened to hit level 5 and get a dragon mount. Congratulations, as was just so kindly pointed out by Grixie or Girix. However, let's imagine instead of you being able to say, I have 1 talent point to put into 1 talent tree, the talents actually cost 4 or 5 points just to get them unlocked, and you have to make the decision as to where you spend your talent points. Taking it back to the old school RPG days of, you've gained 8 XP for your particular session that day. Do you spend that to bring an attribute up, which is going to cost an X amount, or do you actually save it up and go after, we'll say, a discipline, because I'm doing World of Darkness right now, so of course I'm all wrapped up in that. In that particular case, you're actually having a much more involved experience in the development of your character. Except in the games of like MMOs, it's, you get a talent point, you can put your talent point in one of these things, you can build your little trees, but that means that every single talent you get is kind of not really all that important. Whereas if you had to save up your talents just to say unlock your fireball because it takes 2 talent points, whereas ice takes 1, do you save up that one extra talent point to buy your fireball, or do you save up or just say, screw it, I'm going to go with ice this time? You know, there's a different style of character development when you put that in front of a player, and that's more single players than MMOs.
Yeah, you find that kind of setup in the Secret World, where you have like, do I want to spend all my points in shotguns? Do I want to start spending them in pistols? Do I want to put them in clawed weapons? Do I want to put them in swords? And how far into each section do I want to go? Do I want to go really deep into pistols and really master that, or do I want to kind of be a jack of all trades and be able to use anything that I pick up? That's the kind of it still exists, and some MMOs are still using that as a philosophy. The important thing to note is that unless you can go out and get all the points as you level up, which is one option, which is what Guild Wars 2 does with its unlockable skills. You only accumulate a certain number of skills every level. You can also do skill challenges and get skill scrolls to get further skill points. And you can eventually unlock every single skill for your profession. That's fantastic as long as you can unlock everything. If it's a case where as you go you have to make a hard choice and you might not unlock everything, or you might only unlock certain things, and you can never change what you've unlocked, that's a bad choice, because people will basically say, well, I've managed to gimp myself and I can't do anything about it, so yeah, and I will quit the game, which is kind of crap, because that's not your fault. That's not anything that you've done. That's shockingly bad design on the developer's part. If it forces you to make a difficult choice and you've invested time in that, then you should have the ability to retake that choice in order to ungimpify yourself.
So,
Or
time
theory
to
craft.
bring things to a bit of a conclusion, and let's turn things on their head. And I'll go first once for bouncing this one out elsewhere. How should these components be bundled together to come up with the right leveling and customization experience for your character? Well, let's give my take on the matter to start with then. So first of all, I want to be able to get out in the world and play. I'm very unbothered by cosmetics. If I can change them later, great. Because I'm more concerned that the achievements I undertake in-game actually dictate my look. I want my raid armor to look like raid armor. If there's armor for doing 1,000 quests that I'm never going to get in a month of Sundays, it should look really special for the person that puts in the effort to actually get it. One system that's died a death, that's one of the best bits of game design I've seen, I believe was in early EQ2. You started as an archetype class, you made a choice, you became more specialized, the game opened up. You became more specialized again with a later choice, and the game opened up once more. And I believe now, these days, when you go back, you just say, I'm going to be a Shadow Knight, as opposed to saying, I'm going to be a Knight, then I'm going to be a something else, and then I'm going to be a something else. That was awesome. What am I driving at? I'm driving at the fact that as you level, as you gain experience, those experiences should be used to allow you to make choices. Those choices should dictate yourself and your customization. Let's touch on one more thing before I hand over in another direction. In fact,
I just got this vision in my head now of the ultimate game for Mizpah. You start out as a little blob, and every time you kill something, a little pixel is added to it. And by the time you have finished killing off in a zone, completing a quest, you get more pixels added to it. So literally, your character is the sum of all the things you have accomplished, pixel by pixel. That'll make Mizpah happy. It'll infuriate the hell out of me, but it'll make Mizpah happy.
Sounds like leave the pixels out, but you summed it up. Your character should be the sum of your achievements, your choices, and your ability. But I'll throw in the second thing I was going to throw in. Building an optimal character is not just about DPS numbers. In times as a hunter, I would do something in the past, say to give me TSA, True Shot Aura, that actually would lower my net DPS, but up the raid DPS. So you can build for a synergy, for a role, to achieve something as part of a guild. It doesn't have to be about, hey, I do 69.4 and you do 69.3. It's about what you bring to the table in total that helps define your character and what you are. But those are my thoughts. That's how I would like to build up a game and customize my character. Gazimoff, let's go to you next.
Okay, so I think there should be an adequate choice of both races and classes available to choose from when you start off, and those races and classes should have an adequate amount of customization to them. You should also be able to re-customize after you've gone into the game, particularly if you've done a MISPA and just raced in, clicking random a few times before you go in. Just in case someone says, no, you're going to be in a guild portrait, you better look the part for it. So I think selling a character recustomization either as a gold sync item or off the cash shop should be something that happens. I think that as far as leveling is concerned, people should have the freedom to spec how they want, have the freedom to distribute talent points or whatever the flavor of the month for a particular game is, in order to customize how they want to play. And that should be partly their profession choice or their class choice, depending on the game, and partly in terms of how they want to further refine that. You don't need too much specialization. I think you can quite easily over-egg the pudding, but I think that having a simple set of choices to start off with is a great thing, and then being pushed into harder choices as you continue to level up is pretty good as well. I like the idea of being able to tweak and customize your gear as you go, either through something like an enchantment system or a reforging system as well, in order to get the perfect balance. But I think the biggest problem is, and this is something that Misbah touched on, is the fact that with games at the moment, as long as you can do the synchronized swim in endgame raiding, your gear becomes very focused on one particular thing, and that's producing the best numbers for the role that you want to play. Healing output if you're a healer, aggression if you're a tank, and damage mitigation if you're a tank, and DPS if you're a damage dealer. I think that it's quite plausible that we will start looking at having something like an adjustable headroom, where we say, okay, we're going to have this much DPS and this much survivability, and as we become more proficient as players and develop more skill in the agile combat, that balance between survivability and DPS will change. But I think that pushing players down that route is something that might be more interesting. Encourage them to take more survivability in order to stop the raid from completely wiping out. Apart from that, though, my only other thing is that players need to be able to change regularly, freely in terms of ease of use, not in terms of cost, so that they can swap things around and experiment and stuff like that. They should never feel that they are locked into a particular choice, unless it's something like a particular class, a fundamental choice. But anything like specs, point allocation, stuff like that, no, they should be able to change that.
Pseudo. What is
I
your
believe that you
view?
should start out. Well, I believe you should start out as a little white Kirby. And that should just give you a chance to get your name as quickly as possible. And then once you walk in, you have to go through a barber shop where you actually have to spend 7, 12, 13 hours, if you so inclined, designing every tiny minute thing about your character, because it can be fun that way. There is something rather nifty about being able to say that I am the smallest gnome, or I am the tallest gnome, or I am the female bearded dwarf thing, because people think I'm a dwarf for some reason. I think you should allow people to have that customization. Whether or not it has any use in the game, I don't really care. I like taking the time to build what my character looks like, down to the eye color, how long their lashes are. That's a personal choice. That option, I think, should be there. But when it comes down to things like gear, when it comes down to things like leveling, when it comes to talent, specializations, class selection, etc., I do believe that you, as a developer, should develop a game where choices impact the character. If you can have all of the things, I think that is wrong. At that point, you might as well just have someone type in tilde, type in God mode on, and just let them go play. Because that, to me, destroys the game.
Just not with others.
Well, yeah, of course, fair enough. But, if you make it so that every single choice you make, from the class you've selected to the professions you pick up, because hopefully they have impact, to the skills that you are given, to the stats that you have to place, to the talents that you have to select, actually make impactful choices, and you are forced to take responsibility for those choices, both good and bad. Yet, you can change it if you want, and you can spend another 17 hours trying to theory craft out the way, by all means. But I want the choices that are made to be impactful. Just because I hit level 7 doesn't mean anything to me if I am not making an impactful choice to the actual creation of what my character is going to be at the end. So I want consequences for every choice.
And there you go. Many ways to skin the cat, lots of different viewpoints. As we've tackled character customization, meaningful choices, evolution of your character, and a host of other things as we've travelled. But with that, it is time to say goodbye to those of you watching the video on YouTube. For those of you who are still here, we're going to do our customary after show, have a chat, and be sure to answer any questions that are lurking, that are remaining. There's a couple of bits we haven't done. Suno, where can people find us? What's coming up next? How can the community people get involved in what we're doing?
Do I make mention of Wednesday, or do I bite my tongue?
Well, there might be a super secret thing happening on Wednesday at 8 o'clock that people might or might not know about. Maybe.
Well, this is why I'm asking. Basically, what you need to do is you need to just make certain that you are following us on Twitch, that you are following us on Facebook, and it's really easy. Facebook, MMOBuff. It is easy on Twitch, as you can see, because you're watching us here. It's /MMOBuff. If you're on YouTube, you're on YouTube /MMOBuff. Twitter, MMOBuff. I'm kind of seeing a trend here. Hey, check out MMOBuff.TV, because seriously, we've got some amazing stuff coming your way, and you really don't want to miss it. But we've got some massive competitions coming up. We have a heck of a lot of swag that Swagzilla is going to be giving away. We have an awful lot of amazing content, along with some people who are going to be showing up to say hi and actually discuss things with people. You're going to want to follow us. Spread the word as well, because in all honesty, the more people you spread it to, the better chance we have of turning around to, we'll say, oh, gee, I don't know, Tandway Newton, who happens to be a brilliant actress, and saying, hey, a lot of people want to talk to you, and they will actually help out and go, yeah, sure, no problems. So the more you spread us, the more you spread our name, the more you help us out and support us, the better stuff we'll be able to bring you from all kinds of stuff,
And
from be it competitions or whatever.
The only thing we haven't reminded people of, we'll let Gazimoff do that as a parting shot, is Friday.
Yes.
I'm not going to steal his thunder.
Alas, I will not be here this Friday, but if you're here on Friday, stay tuned for Cosmotronic Episode 2, our weekly Wildstar show.
And we might have a guest.
Don't forget to hit... sorry?
We might have a guest.
You might have a guest.
We might have a guest.
I know nothing of this guest, so it'll be a surprise
You
to
know
me and
nothing.
for you as well.
You're not even going to be here. You're going to be in Wales, so you're going to miss it.
I'm going to have my little iPhone, and I will be sitting here watching MMOBuff on
We might take a call.
We haven't even gotten to the
Gazimoff
after show
partway
yet.
through. Anyway,
But,
on that, carry on.
The other thing I was going to say was, make sure you hit the magic subscribe button in the corner of your screens if you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, and that way you'll get the latest content from us whenever it should appear. And if you've got any thoughts, feedback, suggestions, whatever, voice@MMOBuff.TV is the email you should be sending them to.
Indeed. And on that note, only one thing remains, and that is to say, this is Mizpa, signing off.